we saw the famous words. Fully funded.
It's really curious.
Cross
right?
of death.
This is a really funny line. The facility is expected to remove the need for dilutive equity financing and project/corporate debt. How good, right? They cracked the code, fellas, Matty and JD. There's a financial instrument that lets you enter production without debt or equity. It's magic.
Righto, money miners. It's Friday.
It's beer o'clock, Matty, but you and I cracked a beer a lot earlier than beer o'clock.
Well, we had a couple of visitors today. We had a few visitors, but only one, the great man Shane McClay from Entech that knows proper etiquette. Don't fucking rock up to the office empty-handed. He brought us a carton of piss. Drew Harvey, I expected a lot better from you, sunshine. But anyway, word of warning, you want to come in for a yarn, you bring a carton.
He came just after lunchtime and we've cracked a few since then.
Yeah, God, not going to fucking drink themselves, are they, Trav? JD,
Mate,
right?
we need to get the second beer fridge in, I reckon, mate.
Yeah, I know. Double story. Right, today, boys, we're getting into a bit of BHP and Rio. Some very interesting, this Simandou.
Mate, we're going polar opposite ends of the spectrum. We've got a real sort of, junior, to say it politely, on one end, and then you got BHP and Rio, we're going to have a chat about as well.
BHP with the nickel, but the Rio Simandou, that sounds fucking interesting.
Yeah, mate.
And fucking huge.
Let's get into it.
And
Trav's going balls deep now. Trav, make sure you keep yourself hydrated because you've got an absolute filibuster to pump out later. It's bloody
very
exciting.
excited. I'm really excited for this one. It's a company no one's heard of, but the story is very, very, very juicy.
I want to get a leash on you just so you take a breath, and it's going to be bloody good.
And
mate.
filibuster, you've been tuning into a bit of politics lately, Matty.
Yeah, it was in a fucking school, the thing we did in bloody history or something once.
Yeah, right.
I remember some good words. Right, sponsors for today, our great friends at Terra Capital, Bondi and Langers. Not sure if they invest in BHP or Rio, but more tailored to the TSX and the natural resources sector, their natural resource fund.
Mate, I'm sure they'd have a go at BHP or Rio
Do you
if
reckon
they were
BHP and Rio?
Mate, if they were value, maybe they would be.
Maybe. But I reckon they'd look for opportunity outside the mainstream, mate. It's very, very, you want alpha. You don't want to be the market. So you got to be a little bit contrarian sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But they are, look, good natural resource specialists, half their funds in the TSX, and great supporters of Money of Mine. And we absolutely love the blokes. You probably don't love them as much as me because I'm pretty over the top, but you are very fond of them.
No, I appreciate it.
As individuals and a fund. So I've got to have Bondi scheduled in for a Bondi, everything about Bondi episode.
You've narrowed it down.
The life and times.
The life and times. They've also got our foundation OG sponsors, Seamus and Victoria Murphy from Anytime Exploration Services. Mate, tell you
Anytime, anywhere,
I'll just let you know they're getting a mention again on Monday, pertinent to a great episode we've got coming up with an overseas massive potential copper gold project. And trust me, it's worth the wait, both for the episode and the sponsorship presentation.
Both
Sure
of
is.
those are entertainment value.
Yeah.
I know. What's better, what's worse, they're both
The
fucking...
ads are just getting better and better, hey?
The JD's getting involved. Since you revved him up at the start of the week, Trav, and like, geez, it's given me a bloody
Poked a bear.
absolute
I thought
rager.
Matty's just so bloody good at it. Why would I step on his toes?
Right, boys, let's get into it. First up, we did mention at the top of the show, Gina Reinhardt, as of this morning, has 16.69% ownership of Liontown.
Owns more than Timmy.
Bit of a... No, you can't say that. Don't worry. Do you know what I was about to say?
No.
A type of contest,
Okay. Not
but
sure. But
doesn't work.
So she bought $75 million in a crossing, I believe, Matty, after trade. So
no, this was so...
it's a couple of days ago.
Yeah, no,
it's
so
fine.
the 16.69 was this morning, but she's also... Another 75 million was traded this afternoon.
Yeah.
So and I put my left nut on it that it was her. So that would take her to 17.8%. So now I'm not sure if Liontown are giving away the future here or if Gina has unofficially joined the Liontown board, but I'll play a video to demonstrate why I'm querying this. Let's have a look. So the latest announcement is titled Change of Director's Interest Notice, but if you click it, it goes into the change of substantial holding for Gina Reinhardt. So obviously too many change of substantial forms going out for Liontown this week. Or maybe it's Friday and Liontown are just burnt out and ready for a pub session. I'm not sure.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, I know. Bit of a bloody, bit of a howler, that one. So, boys, now do you think Gina will get to 19.99%, the takeover threshold, and sit?
Yep.
Or will she launch a counter bid? I suppose you would think if she launched a counter bid already on top of Albemarle, the share price would have lifted and she wouldn't be picking up the stock as cheap as she is now compared to that. What are your thoughts?
Cheap is a relative word at $3 a share.
Cheaping relative cheapness.
I've bet a carton of Dingo beer, Maddie, that she'll stop at 19.9. She'll, bet that there's another 5% on the register there that collectively can block a scheme of arrangement. Well,
and even with 20% based on the fact that 100% of people won't vote, I'd say it's 25% of the people that vote.
Yeah, I'd second
in the
that.
scheme. So I think 20% is well. She's got well enough now, I'd say.
Yeah, I'll second Trav and bet you a carton this one.
The better question.
We keep making these bets, but we all fucking have the same agreed, so it doesn't work.
So you're not taking the other side? You think the same?
Nah. I think she'll just sit there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got a question for you, Maddie. If you were a Liontown shareholder, would you sell into Gina right now? Say you're holding shares, you've made a good buck on it, you've wrote it up. Are you sitting there thinking there's deal risk if I sort of wait it out, don't know what Gina's intentions are? Would you sell into Gina buying right now?
I reckon if I even bought it $2.90, I'd sell right now. Just because this deal could take ages, time value of money. Like scenario at the moment, it's just the deal goes through at $3, you get $3. I'd rather take me $3 now than in the future. There's obviously the deal risk that it might fall over and Gina keeps picking up shares. That's two scenarios. The third is Gina puts in a bid. So I'd be more confident in one of those two scenarios than the third.
Yep.
This is not financial advice, and fucking do not follow trading advice from me based on my history. I should be at Cottesloe now if I just saved my money.
I think it was a good summary of the risks there.
JD told me that word for word last week. Yeah. I've just repeated it, so thanks, bros. Full comment. Boys, BHP's comments on nickel. What's going on here?
Yeah, so we spoke about nickel a bit earlier in the week. The Money Miners would have heard, I think it was on Wednesday's episode, and BHP must have tuned in. They've decided to chime in with their thoughts, given that they have, Mount Keith, they've got the BHP Nickel West. So they've got their interests, and the context is really
And Leinster.
Yeah. So the context rather is the massive amount of Indonesian supply. We don't need to get into that anymore. And there's all this sort of talk of bifurcating metal prices. So
I've heard of that.
And we're talking about a kind of green premium for a sulfide operation versus a laterite operation, which at the end of the day requires, a lot more carbon being emitted to get to the final product.
And a lot more disposal
Yeah.
of tailings.
Exactly. So a couple negatives on that one. And BHP have pretty much come out and said that they are not yet getting a premium from the market. Obviously, they would like to get that. It's kind of the onus is on them to try and win over customers, but they're not seeing that yet. And, it remains to be seen. We've got a juicy episode in the works all around this topic, and we hopefully can share that with the Money Miners quite soon, but it's just...
And there's one man you'd go to for this episode, and we've got that man.
We sure have.
He's a money of mine favourite.
It's going to be a ripper episode, and there's so much that goes into it. Like we said earlier in the week, we'd spoken with Wailu a couple months back. They sort of saying it was being reflected in payabilities, but Andrew Forrest's old nemesis at BHP clearly sort of disagree. That they're one step further along. They have the smelter, that Mincor were selling to and got their payabilities from, but they're not getting the ultimate premium price from the end customer yet. So
Right, on from you continue.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the bigger thing that we're going to talk about next week is relating to, should metals attract a different price based on the way they're produced and their provenance, and I think that's an interesting discussion. I did see a tweet out, I think it was Mondi, and he linked the AFR article reporting on this one. He goes, the best bit of the article is this quote: The thermal coal mine that BHP plans to shut in New South Wales, Mount Arthur, delivered almost 33 times more earnings over the past year than BHP's WA nickel business.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's going to take a first mover for that to come to fruition.
It's pretty jaw-dropping, but the context of that is that nickel prices have come off 40% and thermal coal prices were very elevated over that past period.
BHP need a green premium for Nickel West.
I mean, let's see what sort of how that kind of plays out there. They're obviously sticking to it. They're sticking to their guns. They're not taking on any laterite projects.
Right, from Australia's biggest miner to Australia's second biggest miner, we'll have a quick discussion because usually they're pretty boring. Do you think if we delay the episode each day, and I want to hear what the money miners think, to like a 3:30 recording, maybe a 5:30 upload, 6 o'clock upload, we can have a beer every day, Trav, because it'd be more acceptable.
That's pretty much when we record every day
If the money miners want to see us crack a tin each episode, we'll just delay it by a couple of hours. Let us know. Let us know in the Hootaroo chat.
Might be bad for our health, but I'm here for it. I'm
a 7-night-a-week drinker, so she's all good. Right, Rio Tinto, the Simandou project, probably haven't pronounced it, couldn't care either. Fascinating history, JD. This thing is bloody huge. Take us into it.
It is, mate. It is fascinating. So this is an iron ore asset, a really high-grade iron ore asset in the sort of hilly, almost mountainous region in Guinea. So,
the Africa Guinea. Not the Papua New Guinea. Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple African Guineas, but the Guinea. So they need a 600-kilometre roughly rail to get it from the mine to the port. It's not actually the quickest route, but the Guinean government won't let it go through Liberia, which sort of sits in between the asset and the coast, and a more quicker route.
Liberia just reminds me of what is it? Lord of War, the movie. He was working.
The Blood Diamonds movie?
No, the one where he's selling all the guns to the head of the Liberian government. So I don't know. Yeah.
I'll chuck that on the list, mate.
Mightn't have been true.
Mightn't have been.
Good show. Nicolas Cage.
So Simandou is broken into various blocks, Maddie. You got blocks 1 and 2, which are 90% owned by SMB Winning. It's a consortium. They have Singaporean, Chinese, and Guinean interests, and then you've got blocks 3 and 4, which are 45% owned by Rio and 40% owned by Chinalco, and then 15% government interest.
Who's Chinalco?
It's a Chinese aluminium business.
Oh, yeah, China, Elco.
That's right.
Easy.
So, yeah, like you said, Maddie, at the beginning, fascinating history. There's bribery, there's dodgy dealings. Rio got the tenements in 97. They were given a mining permit in 2002. Then they had blocks 1 and 2 taken off them. They were given to a controversial, maybe infamous diamond dealer who went on to sell them a couple of years later to Vale for £1.6 billion.
So when you say taken off, just not paid for?
Allegedly, and he was actually convicted of this, of paying money to the sort of royal family government officials in the country, and in return being given the assets.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, that 1.6 billion payment had over 300 million upfront cash payment from Vale, who then only a couple of years after that put it on the back burner. So there's a really interesting history. Won't get into all the details. But not too long ago, Fortescue even bid on some of these blocks that obviously hasn't come to fruition. So Simandou has a scale of 60 million tonnes per annum, and that can be scaled up to 110 million tonnes per annum. And for a bit of context...
Gee, that's huge for iron ore.
It is big for a particular asset. I mean, Rio did almost 80 million tonnes in 1 quarter of this year alone, but they've got various assets in the Pilbara. So
I think the biggest mine, so BHP's South Flank, I think that's one of their newest one, that has capacity of 80 million tonne. I think combined with Area C, the hub produces 145. So, but I think the biggest iron ore mine in the world is Vale's Serra Norte. That complex produces 113 million tonne. So if that gets 110 million tonne capacity, that would be close to the biggest iron ore mine in the world.
Yeah, and super, super high grade, 66 to 68%. That's like some of the FMG stuff is 58, 57%. So
yeah, I've got a feeling the Pilbara blend, which Rio's product is. I think it's, I better not say because I don't know. I think it's like 63 or something.
Yeah,
so 66 to 68 is fucking high.
62 is the standard like commodity pricing index that you'll read. So 68 is bloody high.
Yeah.
So like I sort of touched on there's a long history with this asset, but it finally feels like it's actually close to being mined. So, African iron ore seems to be a bit on the up. FMG have been backing their asset in Gabon. That's had a couple hiccups lately, but they've put a fair bit of money into that as well.
I think it's interesting in one sense too, in the sense of like, it's a period in time where we talk about how important it is to choose your partner in a correct way. There's all these geopolitical influences, and there are some big question marks around partnering with Chinese entities at the project level. And here's sort of Rio kind of pulling the trigger and advancing that in a pretty straightforward way. So in this kind of context, I find it a curious decision. I'm not sure how it'll stack up in the fullness of time. I think one of the other pressures for Rio Tinto that isn't immediately obvious is I think their economic interest in some of their Pilbara iron ore assets sort of decreases towards FY26, FY27 from memory. I'd have to double check the exact stats, but that presents a bit of a growth problem which they have to backfill.
Yeah,
otherwise their price to earnings ratios look a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. And the partnering is fascinating in iron ore because so much of the stuff ultimately goes to China. So partnering with Chinese and so on, it sort of makes for an interesting debate, which we'll get into at another time. So the infrastructure is a really intriguing part of this one. Iron ore, mines it's all about infrastructure. It's all about efficiency, right? And it kind of stacks up a bit differently to the infrastructure we see in the Pilbara because, there's two real reasons for this. Firstly, shared infrastructure. You don't see that. We saw it when we went up to the Pilbara. You're going over 4 railway lines within 50 metres of one another. It's like all this, there's no sharing of the assets. They all built it side by side and, it costs a lot more. It's, not the most effective way to do it. And that's not what they're doing here. They're going to share it amongst all the various parties, and then the government's going to have a stake in it. So,
God, iron ore competition in Australia in the Pilbara, like that'd be a great deep dive for someone that knows a lot about that. When you talk about why they won't help that person and bidding on tenements, that is fascinating too, JD.
It's capitalism, right? And the second reason why I find it fascinating, Maddie, is the river. Obviously, there are rivers up in the Pilbara, but not to this extent. And they're not actually planning to ship a lot of stuff like on a barge or anything down the river, but they do want to build a port in a sort of shallow water in a sort of estuary before they build a deeper water port later on. And I'm just getting flashbacks reading about Rio Tinto and a river in Africa to Riversdale. And that
big disclaimer, they're not barging anything this time.
Just a debacle. That was one of the worst mining M&A deals of all time. I'm sure a lot of people...
Was it $6 billion or something?
No, it was, a bit less. But, I think a lot of...
got written down to fuck all, didn't it?
Yeah.
To nothing, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think...
Plus money was spent on it.
I think a lot of people in Perth made a lot of money off that. But ultimately for Rio, it was a real lemon. Turned into, a huge write-down. Cost a lot of people their jobs because it was just a poorly executed, poorly thought through job. So the funding coming together today, a US $100 million loan, that's to start getting the infrastructure being built by Rio. It doesn't mean it's all going ahead. Jacob Starzom, the boss at Rio, reckons it's all go. There's, it's a certainty that this thing is going to be built. And the latest presentation from Rio does show quite a bit of capex. Their part is US $4 billion, and that's just Rio. And I mentioned, a bunch of partners. The ultimate capex is going to be in the teens of billions of US dollars. It's just enormous. So they want to be producing by Q1 of 2026. The government there wanted to be producing by 2025. Obviously, it's in their interest to start getting the royalties and the earnings that they'll get from their freed carried stake as soon as possible. But, that's pretty soon, in a couple of years' time to have this thing, to have over 600 kilometres of rail built, to have the mine going that's supposedly going to be a mine for the last 20 years. They're going to have to get cracking.
And the estuary port and estuary everything, like the rail and the port, you imagine how much that costs, let alone the potential 110 million tonne crushing and screening facility.
Too right. It's a lot of work, a lot of bureaucratic institutions to get over the line, a lot of funding to be, whipped around. So we'll see how it all plays out from here.
Very interesting, JD. Love your work. Travis Ricardinho, mate, the curious...
Hey, mate.
The curious you're back. Have you got your breath back? Because fuck, you were in the zone before. You're probably half pissed too after how many beers you've had. But no.
Which means I'm in the zone.
You're in the zone. He's at that optimum. When you're throwing darts or playing golf, you have 2 beers and you just start hitting them better. Trav's maintained that level all day. He's 0.04 on the breatho. We've kept him at that. Yeah. Mate, the curious case of Besra Gold and its mystery US $300 million financier. Now, I've read this 19 times and I'm still confused. I hope you're going to unconfuse me, mate.
I hope so.
Take it away, Cobble. What's going on here?
Besra Gold is probably an ASX company that the money miners have not come across. In fact, I hadn't come across it until about 2 weeks ago myself. But it's been floating about on the ASX for years. It's had a name change along the journey and re-emerged through a relisting. Its ticker is BEZ, and there's a very, very fascinating story about the history of this company over the last year, and I'm keen to tell it. I want to tell it in a way that's just a little bit chronological because I think that's the easiest way to unpack it. But it involves some really curious stuff going on. They're currently in trading halt today, and that's why we're talking about them. But there's just been a bunch of stuff and a bunch of ASX announcements that I look at and I interpret with a big question mark is, what the fuck?
What's the project, Trav? I know it's been around, their feasibility come out in like 2013 or something.
Yeah, so it's called the Besra Goldfield in Malaysia. Now, on the 24th of November last year, Besra was a tiny ASX company with its own checkered history. Like I said, name changes, relisting, all that sort of stuff in the past. It had a very undemanding market capitalization, just and $17 million market cap, right? And that asset, the Besra Goldfield in Malaysia, it had an effective 92.8% interest in that project. The next day, Matty, so 25th of November, they go into trading halt, right? They announce an entitlements issue to raise $5 million. It's steeply discounted. So I think it was a 33.5% discount to the 15-day VWAP. And its major shareholder, keep this company in mind, its major shareholder, Quantum Recovery Metal Inc., agrees to underwrite the entitlements offer. The offer price, again, keep this one in mind, 5 cents per share, undemanding price, right?
So what, was it like a 1 for 2 or something?
It wasn't quite 1 for 2, but
something along those lines. And they underwrit what wasn't taken up by the sub-underwrit what wasn't taken up by the shareholders.
Correct. At the exact same time as this entitlements issue is announced, Besra, they announced that they're also in advanced discussions with Quantum, that major shareholder we spoke about, for a $300 million, US $300 million gold offtake purchase facility to advance production of their Besra Gold project. That's a big number, US 300 for a $17 million market cap company, right?
And is there anyone else that has a gold offtake arrangement? Is that not a common thing?
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen. There's a bunch of funky stuff that can happen. You can do financial engineering in certain ways for certain projects in certain jurisdictions, but this one's a very, very curious one to unpack. When they announced that they're in these advanced discussions, nothing was concrete yet, right? But in this announcement, they do reveal that the proposed arrangement would see Besra receive 90% of the effective spot price for each ounce delivered to Quantum subject to a cap.
Yep.
So that was the kind of guidance to the market is they're having this conversation about some sort of funding solution.
So that makes sense.
Kind of.
At this stage.
And then it kind of went quiet, right? So that was November last year, and then we come to March of this year, and we start seeing more announcements relating to Quantum as well, right?
Exactly right. 9th of March this year now, so we're in 2023. Besra enter a trading halt. And pending release of an announcement of executed term sheet with Quantum, so they've signed a deal, but this is 9th of March. The share price at the time, 4 cents per share, right? 4 cents per share. They stayed in suspension, however, for 12 days. It was nearly 2 weeks, and they finally come out on the 21st of March.
2 weeks to sign a term sheet. Oof.
Yeah, I think, they say it was signed. So, I mean, the basis, it's pending the release of an announcement of it being executed. So it took them 12 days to write up the announcement for it having already been executed, which is curious to me. I do kind of internally wonder if there was some back and forth with ASX about what needs to be included on the announcement and what are the relevant disclosure requirements, and maybe that took 12 days. I'm not entirely sure, but it did take 12 days. 21st of March, right? What was the announcement that finally got released? Well, this is the interesting bit. They come out of Holt, and the happy days, the term sheet's executed. However, it does say at the top, non-binding. So non-binding term sheet's been executed. It's signed though, so happy days. The investors get to look at the terms of this funding commitment with Quantum.
So what is a non-binding signed sheet?
Yeah, that's just the first stage of like you have a non-binding, and then that's like your first thing.
So you still sign the non-binding.
You do sign it, yeah,
righto,
but it's non-binding. You can, pull
You
out.
can get out. Righto.
But it's just the next step of advancing things. But they announced it. Happy, cool. It took them 12 days, but it's announced. But the good thing is they do include all of the details and all the terms, so or at least a summary of them. So investors get a bit of an idea of what they're talking about, which is great. The market laps it up, importantly too, because the share price hits a high of 10 cents the day that they're back trading, and they closed the day the share price at 8.5 cents, more than 2x what it was when it went into Holt. Over the next 7 weeks, the share price rallies hard. It marches all the way to 45 cents.
Fucking hell. Yeah, right.
So if you were there at 4 cents before they went into Holt, that's an 11 bagger on that pre-Holt price, assuming you sold at the top there. But back to the terms of the funding agreement, which we see in the announcement on that 21st of March announcement. Here's the spicy stuff, Maddie and JD. The facility provides up to US $300 million to be paid over 30 months at a rate of US $10 million per month.
And so as in
$10 million a month.
paid from Quantum to Besra.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And we saw the famous words, fully funded.
It's really curious.
Cross
right?
of death.
So here's this financial instrument. They call it, it's enabling Besra to fully fund production at Bow. This is a really funny line. The facility is expected to remove the need for dilutive equity financing and project/corporate debt. How good, right? They cracked the code, fellas, Matty and JD. There's a financial instrument that lets you enter production without debt or equity. It's magic.
So many things that don't make sense, and maybe the fully funded one just angers me the most. Like, how would that work? How would getting money each month? You need the money up front. Mm-hmm. That's why it's called, upfront capital or pre-production capex, You need to build the thing up front.
Unless you got some fucking very friendly suppliers that are willing to get paid over 3-year period per month.
They're pretty much paying you to do it.
Exactly.
It's strange, right? Because the way a mine works is you need the capital up front to build the mine before you can actually produce anything. And in this instance, it's this continuous flow. You get money in the door and then you produce and then you sell. But that's not how mining works. We all know that.
Can you please build me a mill and I'll pay you in 5 years' time?
It's not like you can incrementally develop a mine over 30 months. It doesn't work that way.
Part of the conveyor first, you do a month's production, then you put the other part on. Just crazy.
But they wouldn't be able to do any of that because they can't get the gold to get it. Get the monthly payment.
None of it makes sense.
Doesn't stack up. So... And you mentioned that study, Maddie, when that was done in March 2014, so 9 years ago now. These numbers are old and inflation's happened since. But the pre-production capex then was US $92 million, not $10 million. I don't know how this all. How does construction fit into this financing facility in a way that it is technically fully funded? Don't understand. I think you'd still need some more funding in order to actually build a mine there.
So there's all that, Trav, and then there's a whole nother layer to this one with, the MD, directors, companies and stuff. So we're going to talk about Pangea. They were a major shareholder of Besra, an 18.8% shareholder in April of this year, right?
Correct indeed. The MD of Besra at that point in April was Miss Jocelyn Bennett. And she only joined as a NED and chair of Besra in February, so 2 months before that. And on the 17th of April 2023, the ASX announcements disclosed that Pangea, a company which Jocelyn is also a director of, has sold $500,000 of Besra shares on market. Interestingly, these disclosures are accompanied by a clarification letter announced on the ASX stating that the sale of these shares was authorised by another director of Pangaea, not Miss Bennett. And this letter says that Miss Bennett was not aware until after the sale completed. The Pangaea director that was authorised for this sale was also said to not be aware of Besra's securities trading policy and a blackout period on trading the shares. Naughty, fellas.
Very sloppy.
Very sloppy. 31st of July this year, so a couple of months ago. At this stage, the agreement with Quantum has been executed, no longer non-binding, Matty, and approved by shareholders as well. Pangaea, the company Miss Bennett is director of, disclosed that it has sold more shares on market, another $750,000 worth this time. The following day, the 1st of August, Miss Bennett, the director of Pangaea, tenders her resignation as a director and, of Besra.
Yep.
She leaves. Mr. John Seaton steps up as interim chair. Further ASX disclosures show Pangaea continuing to sell down after she departs because it was a substantial shareholder. They sell another $1.1 million worth of shares in August, a further $1.4 million worth of shares in September. That was
that's about
last month.
3.6 million that's up to.
Selling a lot.
So they had 18.5%. So God, they would have been close to back to. Had the share price gone down shitloads from that 45% high?
Coming down. Yeah. Still elevated, but coming down. Now we're in September, right? So 20th of September is this announcement on ASX, and you see Besra.
So two weeks. This is a couple of weeks ago. Yep.
In this announcement, there's a funny paragraph flashed up on screen. Besra doubling down at the fact that they don't need debt, which would encumber Besra, or dilutive equity because of this amazing financial engineering deal that's happened. All gold companies should think of this one, Matty, if they can avoid debt and equity to fund a mine. 28th of September, very recently, another Besra non-executive director departs. This time it's Mr. Paul Ingram making way for the founder of Quantum, Dado Lim. He joins as exec chair this time with another Quantum nominee joining too on the board.
So the Quantum people that are providing the lucrative financing deal.
Yep.
Yeah, righto.
And today, Besra are in trading halt pending an announcement concerning funding from Quantum Metal Recovery Inc. That's where we are today. And I want to take a moment to share with you guys a few things I came across when researching this story that are pretty pertinent to how we think about it, I reckon.
So is it when this the head of Quantum joins Besra, Quantum is still a major shareholder of Besra as well. How much? Do you
at
know
this
how
time,
much
they're
got?
I think they're about 28% at this point, plus or minus a couple. Yeah. So because they sub underwrote the entitlements offer, they went from I think sub 20 to above like 20 in that process. So they've got a big stake in Besra. And all right, so the few things I want to kind of discuss when researching this story is I think we really ought to take a look at Quantum. Even better, let's let the video on Quantum's website explain themselves to the money miners. It's something to behold. We'll play a snippet.
Rip it.
Our journey began with a simple dream of one very determined man, a vision to change and be the leader of the gold exchange industry. And that was a very ambitious endeavor. To save cost, he took the cheapest midnight bus he could find from Penang to Kuala Lumpur to attend bank early meetings. He waited at McDonald's KL Central with a cup of steaming hot coffee in his hands until the time for bank meetings and convinced them to be his distributors. Without proper office, he held meetings with his IT team at Mama Stalls to discuss about the development of Quantum Metal's ecosystem.
That was interesting.
Really interesting.
Inspirational.
I'm pumped up. I'm inspired. Wow.
Get me in on it.
Staggering, in all honesty. Like, seriously, I just don't know what to think of Quantum.
Tell us what you really think, Trav.
Can you believe that footage? I don't know. Anyway, there's another video that is on Quantum Metal Malaysia YouTube channel, which I think is worth playing a snippet of as well. I don't know what to make of this. The news channel, it looks like it's supposed to come from a legitimate mainstream media company, but it's not. It's Calkine TV. Let's play it.
The board of Besra Gold on the ASX's BEZ advises the market that it is in advanced discussions with its substantial shareholder, Quantum Metals Recovery, to provide up to $300 million in financial support, commencing as soon as calendar year 2023.
What the hell is that?
Well, Trav, like, look, I know, like, we might have viewed it differently a year ago, but look, the media landscape has changed. Like, the money miners are used to what we deliver, the high quality. This technique and this style has just become a bit obsolete in the industry, I think.
I don't know what this company is. As best I can tell, it's like pay for play, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's strange, right?
Some people are still trying to do this style as well, but yeah, it just doesn't work with the new big dogs in town. Sorry, everyone.
I lost a few IQ points watching that one.
Right, so what's happening now?
We'll wait and see what happens with the announcement to come after the trading halt. ...
So, and what was this? Sorry, I've lost track. What's this trading halt for?
It's an announcement in relation to the funding agreement.
Pending an announcement concerning funding from Quantum.
Okay.
So it's just an update on this whole funding that we're talking about.
Yeah, right. Okay, so when's that? And that should be out early next. Well, who knows? The last time they went into a 2-week trading halt. Love your work. Oh, what a fucking good way to bloody finish the week, boys.
Good stuff, guys. And we've got an episode to drop tomorrow for the Money Miners as well.
Should we give a preview? Nah. It's a world first.
World premiere.
It's a fucking world first what's coming out tomorrow, Money Miners. Saturday, 2 p.m. Perth time. That would be 5 p.m. Sydney time.
Love it.
Daylight savings is in.
It is.
Any time zone conversions, hit up Money of Mine.
Beauty.
Right,
Thanks to Terra Capital, Anytime Exploration Services, JP Search, K-Drill and SMEC.
Oh, fuck, that was good, JD.
Proud dad.
JD is now the marketing manager for Money of Mine. Boys, have a good weekend. Money Miners, have a good weekend. Love yous all. Hootaroo.
Hootaroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.